Hi Claire, it's Şebnem from Ankara, Turkey. First of all, thank you very much for your books, videos, and articles. Thanks to you, we get the most accurate information about Tudor history. And when you get that information, it's really disturbing to have some inaccuracies in movies and books. Of course, you cannot expect fiction to be that accurate, but still, when you get used to it, it's really bothering. My question is about Elizabeth of York. Do you think she really had an affair with her uncle, Richard III? Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you to Şebnem for this excellent question. In Philippa Gregory's fictional series The Cousins' War, which has also been adapted for television, Elizabeth of York, eldest daughter of King Edward IV and his wife Elizabeth Woodville, falls in love with her uncle King Richard III, and the two become lovers while his wife, Queen Anne or Anne Neville, is dying, and they are planning to marry. When Richard is killed at the Battle of Bosworth in August 1485, Elizabeth is completely grief-stricken, but is reminded by her mother that she will still become queen by marrying the new king, King Henry VII. So, novelist Philippa Gregory depicts Elizabeth as Richard's lover. But is there any truth to this? Probably, according to Philippa Gregory, who writes on her website philippagregory.com that although we don't have anything certain as far as evidence goes, the balance of probability is with the Richard-Elizabeth connection, possibly a secret betrothal, possibly a love affair. She backs up this theory by saying that there were rumours that Richard had poisoned his wife Anne, and that a now lost letter from Elizabeth to the Duke of Norfolk, recorded by historian George Buck, seems to suggest, as Gregory explains, that she was hoping that the Duke would promote the marriage, as she was his heart and soul and all. She also points out that Richard had to publicly announce that he had no intention of marrying Elizabeth. And Gregory isn't the only writer to depict Richard III as wanting to marry his niece. William Shakespeare, in his play Richard III, has Richard poisoning his wife so that he can court Elizabeth. However, I don't believe that the evidence does stack up. Let's look at what history actually tells us. On the 9th of April 1483, Elizabeth's father, King Edward IV, died suddenly at the age of 41, leaving the throne to Elizabeth's 12-year-old brother Edward, who became King Edward V. Of course, his reign was rather short-lived, as his uncle Richard, Duke of Gloucester, was proclaimed king on the 26th of June 1483, becoming King Richard III, and Edward and his brother Richard were confined to the Tower of London, from where they disappeared. Their fate is one of history's great mysteries. 17-year-old Elizabeth joined 31-year-old Richard's royal court at Westminster. In April 1484, Richard and Anne's only son, Edward of Middleham, died suddenly, and the grieving Queen Anne went on to become seriously ill. That Christmas, Anne and Elizabeth of York appeared at the festive celebrations dressed in a very similar manner, something which gave rise to rumours. The Croyland or Crowland Chronicle states that it was a thing that caused the people to murmur and the nobles and prelates greatly to wonder at, while it was said by many that the king was bent either on the anticipated death of the queen taking place, or else by means of a divorce, for which he supposed he had quite sufficient grounds, on contracting a marriage with the said Elizabeth. For it appeared that in no other way could his kingly power be established, or the hopes of his rival being put an end to. The rival mentioned there was obviously Henry Tudor, who, the Christmas before, had vowed to marry Elizabeth. Wearing matching gowns with Queen Anne certainly is not evidence of anything going on between niece and uncle, or of Elizabeth trying to outshine her aunt. As historian Amy Licence notes, it may simply have been a way for Elizabeth to show solidarity with the Queen. Amy Licence notes also that Richard could have easily married Elizabeth off to another man to prevent her marriage to Henry Tudor. He didn't need to marry her himself, and that by marrying Elizabeth, he'd have to acknowledge her legitimacy and thereby invalidate his own claim to the throne. But the rumours continued, and on the 30th of March 1485, 2 weeks after his wife's death, Richard did address these rumours by issuing a public denial that he wanted to marry Elizabeth. As well as the Croyland Chronicle, another piece of evidence that is used to back up the idea of an affair is a letter found by historian George Buck, who served King James I as Master of the Revels. He found a letter allegedly written by Elizabeth to John Howard, Duke of Norfolk, which he published in his work on Richard III. This letter was also edited and published in 1646 by Buck's great-nephew, also called George Buck. As Amy Licence points out, the two versions are significantly different, and the elder Buck's version is fire damaged and so was reconstructed to an extent that suggests liberal degrees of interpretation in the 1640s. The second version of the letter makes out that Elizabeth is in love with Richard, is seeking Norfolk's assistance with her marriage to the king, and is complaining that Queen Anne is taking too long to die. However, while the first version has Elizabeth saying that she feared the Queen would never ... fire damage, the second version has feared the Queen would never die. The blanks have been filled in. Elizabeth may well have been fearing that the Queen would never recover. Doesn't that make more sense? The second version also has Elizabeth saying that she belonged to Richard in heart and in thoughts, in body and all, which certainly suggests an affair. But the word body does not appear in the earlier version. It reads, she was his ... heart, in thoughts, in ... and in all. So lots of blanks. Elizabeth was probably just stating her loyalty and obedience to her uncle, and also her affection for him. There is also no plea for Norfolk to help her marry the king, only for him to be a mediator for her to the probably king ... It's highly probable that Elizabeth was simply asking Norfolk to mediate with the king regarding arranging a suitable marriage for her. It's rather a leap to read it as her wanting him to help her marry her uncle. A romance between Richard III and his young and beautiful niece obviously makes great fiction and TV, but rumour and a heavily edited letter can't be taken as evidence, and Elizabeth's reputation appears to have remained unblemished, for Henry Tudor doesn't seem to have had any doubts about marrying her. So no, I don't believe Richard and Elizabeth had an affair. My book recommendation for Elizabeth of York is this one by Amy Licence, Amy Licence's biography of her. And I'll also give you a link to an excellent article on the Nerdalicious blog written by Olga Hughes, which goes into a lot of detail on this topic. It really is fascinating, and as I said, does make for great fiction. But history just doesn't back it up. Thank you for joining me. You can subscribe to this channel by clicking around about there, I think. You can, of course, give me a like and leave me a comment too. And make sure you click the bell as well to receive notifications. I'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.